The following problem states, barium chloride reacts with sodium sulfate according to the following equation. A student mixes a solution containing 10 grams of barium chloride with a solution of 10 grams of sodium sulfate and contains 12 grams of barium sulfate. What is the percent yield of this reaction? Well, the very first thing that we have to do is we have to determine what is my limiting reactant. So let's start off with barium chloride, and we have 10 grams of barium chloride. We need to go from grams to moles of barium chloride in order to use the stoichiometric relationship. And the molecular weight for barium chloride is 208.2 grams of barium chloride to 1 mole of barium chloride. Grams and grams cancels out. Then we use the molar ratio, so 1 mole of barium chloride for 1 mole of barium sulfate. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Moles and moles cancels out. And then we have to convert moles of barium sulfate to grams of barium sulfate. And we multiply by the molecular weight of barium sulfate, which is 233.2 grams of barium sulfate over 1 mole of barium sulfate. Moles and moles cancels out, and we end up with 11.2 grams of barium sulfate. So now let's do the same thing with sodium sulfate to determine which of the two reactants is going to limit my reaction. We also have 10 grams of sodium sulfate, and this has a molecular weight of 142.1 grams of sodium sulfate to 1 mole of sodium sulfate. And we're doing this because in order to use the stoichiometric relationships in a chemical equations, you need to be in moles. Now that we're in moles of sodium sulfate, we can use the ratio, which is a 1-to-1 molar ratio, in order to convert to moles of barium sulfate. Moles and moles cancels out. And now we can need to do the same thing, convert moles of barium sulfate to grams of barium sulfate to determine which of the two reactants is going to limit my overall reaction. So 233.2 grams of barium sulfate divided by 1 mole of barium sulfate. My moles cancel out, and I'm left with 16.4 grams of barium sulfate. So the barium chloride is going to limit my reaction because it produces the least number of grams of barium sulfate for my product. Now I can determine my percent yield, which is my actual yield over my theoretical yield times 100. In this case, it's 12.0 grams, which was my actual yield, divided by 11.2 grams times 100%. And we end up getting a percent yield of 107%. Well, this is over 100%, and so what does this tell you about your product? Well, your product can still be wet from the overall reaction, and you didn't completely dry your product, so you ended up with a larger mass than expected. So make sure when you do these types of problems, you're also taking into consideration what your overall answer means. So if it's larger than 100%, that doesn't make too much sense because it's telling you that your product's still wet and you have to continue drying it in order to get your correct percent yield. Thank you.